Welcome into the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, JD McKell. Of course, we're brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack. Some big news via Shorty's Pizza Shack coming later in the show. So JD, just be prepared to have your mind blown.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's coming later in the show. But a crazy, crazy week in the Big 12. An absolutely crazy week.
Nuts.
Baylor dominates Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, they dominated them. And that game was 10-7 until late in the third quarter, I know, or actually into the fourth quarter. But it 10-7 was not really how that game was going. And Oklahoma got physically dominated. Mm-hmm. They didn't lose that game on kind of a fluke or anything. They got knocked all over the field. Texas physically dominated against Kansas and loses 57-56 in overtime. Oklahoma State makes a statement win about how good they have become, being a TCU team that had some momentum after last week and just went away. A crazy, crazy, crazy week in the Big 12.
Absolutely nuts.
I mean, a 62-yard field goal wins a game.
Oh, yeah.
And Iowa State sees their conference title hopes pretty much dashed.
I mean, how much has our approach to the Big 12 in terms of the college football playoff changed within that week? Like going into the week, we're saying, okay, Oklahoma, they control their own destiny, undefeated Power 5 conference champion. I'm sitting here, I don't know about you, I'm sitting here today saying if Oklahoma State wins out, need some help probably, but I would take them one over Oklahoma just in Bedlam in general. Two, I think they're the best chance for the Big 12 to make the college football playoffs. So a lot of craziness going on. And then Baylor, if they get some things rolling their way and they went out, could see Baylor, Oklahoma State in the final.
Well, we're almost out of undefeateds. We've got Georgia and Cincinnati, and forgive me if I'm leaving somebody else out. UTSA. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Coach Traylor, good friend of the show. But UTSA, and UTSA is not in this conversation, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And Cincinnati's barely in it. Unbelievably enough, because of their group of 5 teams. Mm-hmm. But, so Georgia and UTSA and Cincinnati right now. So now you're starting to split hairs among one-loss teams. So is Oklahoma State's loss to Iowa State better or worse than Michigan's loss to Michigan State? It's probably a little bit worse than that. Or is it's probably better than Oregon's loss to Stanford? It's, is it better than Ohio State's loss to Oregon? All those kind of things that you do. And yes, I know that you can answer all these questions, college football world, but that's where Oklahoma State is now. And it's the end of the season, so everything you do counts more towards the end because the committee likes how you're playing now compared to how you were playing earlier. And Oklahoma State's playing well late, and they're right now, to me, the singular best team in the Big 12, and they've proven it, and they'll get a chance 2 more times to prove it, but I think right now, you guys say that's the team you don't want to see. If you picked any of the 10 teams you don't want to see, I think Oklahoma State's going to win that one.
I mean, their defense has been unbelievable. We talk about how good Baylor's defense is. Oklahoma State's defense has been just as good. And Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State fans, I apologize. I was down on Spencer Sanders. I don't think an inappropriate amount, but he has 1,000% proven me wrong. And in a lot of ways been able to allow this team to be as good as they have, because my knock on him early in the year was really athletic, really talented, not smart with the football. Last week, 68% completion percentage, no interceptions. They had 2 fumbles. Neither of them were from Spencer Sanders. I mean, he has been a reason why this team is in the position they are right now. He's played mistake-free football, and they're in good chance to make the playoff.
If you're Spencer Sanders and you're 17-25 for 200 yards and change and a touchdown, that's a good day.
You're winning the ballgame.
Yeah, I know that most people look at college sports right now and go, oh, that's kind of pedestrian. But when you've got 2 running backs going over 100 and you rush for 8 touchdowns as a team, that's old school Nebraska, Oklahoma, wishbone, power eye kind of rushing touchdowns. And Oklahoma State's they're in the driver's seat in this league for the first time since 2011. And Mike Gundy has reinvented himself. Yeah. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. That's hard for coaches to do. They do things one way. And if you had probably told him last year you're going to have the best defense in the Big 12 and you're not going to try to, throw it all over the yard, he'd been like, well, I mean, like, who's hurt? That's the thing. Like, who got hurt that we had to change this? Nobody. You just kind of realize this is where you have to be. So congrats to Mike Gundy, a guy that I always felt was a good coach but unable to adapt. Mm-hmm. No, wrong. He's adapted.
And a running back who's getting it, at least early in the year, close to 30 times a game. And credit Spencer Sanders, too, because his play style is not necessarily catering to what they ask him to do at Oklahoma State. I know they do the zone read stuff like that, and that's not so much what I'm saying. What I mean is he's a phenomenal athlete. Phenomenal athletes aren't always the best game managers, and they've asked him to do that at Oklahoma State, and he's really run into that role very, very well. So credit to him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to Baylor, Oklahoma right now.
Golly.
Let's get into the teeth of that game. I picked Oklahoma in the game because Baylor's only won before Saturday 3 other times in the history of the rivalry, and it's been 7 years since they had.
Yeah.
And so it's always hard for me to pick Baylor to beat Oklahoma. Look, before the game in 2011, I was on the radio saying, guys, look, RG3 in this offense is really fantastic. They're really fun, but look at they'd gotten blown out by Oklahoma State, and they gotten blown out by A&M. They'd lost a close game earlier in the year to Kansas State, but blowout against teams that did the same kind of thing on offense at the time that Oklahoma was doing. I was like, this is not a team that's going to beat Oklahoma. Went out and had a miracle win. Mm-hmm. So and then for a little bit they had kind of control the series for 3 out of 4 or 5 years. But since then, it's not been Baylor's game. Baylor physically mauled Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I mean, absolutely. They left 17 points on the field, maybe 21, maybe 24 in the first half. Honestly, if you think about what they did and where they threw interceptions or where drive stalled or where fourth downs didn't convert, missed field goal and all that stuff, they left at least 17 points on the field. And sometimes most of the time, you can't leave points on the field against Oklahoma.
No.
Because they'll make them up against you. The defense acted like it had never even happened. They just went out there and stopped Oklahoma and stopped Oklahoma and stopped Oklahoma and stopped Oklahoma over and over and over again.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, legitimately, from start to finish, how physical Baylor was. It felt like they really wore down Oklahoma. And also, this is an Oklahoma team that was coming off of a bye week. So, in theory, Oklahoma should have been fresh. They should have been able to be all studied up on Baylor, and they just looked lost multiple times. I mean, we saw a Spencer Rattler sighting, and we saw the Oklahoma fans be stoked about it. I mean, juxtapose that with the West Virginia game where they're chanting, "We want Caleb." Obviously, different settings for that to happen, but bottom line, Baylor, the stat that stands out to me the most is 296 yards rushing to Oklahoma's 82. Anytime you run for almost 300 yards, you're going to win, much less when you hold your opposition to under 100. All the credit in the world to Abram Smith. Gary Bohannon played very big when he needed to. He didn't look sharp the entirety of the game, but was gritty, played violent like he said he had to going into this game. So hats off to Dave Aranda, hats off to this team. Responded in an enormous way after the loss to TCU.
Yeah, absolutely. Really did it. And adapting offensively in the second half where what they're doing wasn't working. You know, it wasn't like it was bad. Oklahoma wasn't shutting them down, so to speak, where it was like, man, this is a defensive battle. It's like Baylor they'd get to third gear, but they couldn't get to fourth. It was just like they were, and then, all right, Gary Bohannon's going to run the football.
Yeah.
They're going to run the football to Gary Bohannon, see what happens, and, 100 yards on the ground from him. Abram Smith has a huge, big run in the second half, and all of a sudden, look at that. You're 24-14, you win, and the 14 was a garbage touchdown. 27 for whatever it was at the end of after they, kicked the field goal to win. So, or 27-14. So they beat them. The Big 12 officials screwed up a good field storming.
Sure.
So, and that's another conversation for another day on how that all went down. But Dave Aranda, at least smart of him to look ahead on the tiebreaker. It wound up not mattering because Oklahoma State blew the tiebreaker three-way tie scenario out of the water.
Yeah.
By winning by 47 points or where they won by 46 points.
Yeah, something crazy like that. Yeah.
A whole lot of points.
Yeah.
Later in the day. So while you had it for 3 hours. Well, after that you didn't. So, but it was all good and I mean everything worked out for Baylor last Saturday.
Yeah, and probably should have been a longer field goal with the storming of the field and there being no penalty on that. So I understand why Lincoln Riley's upset about that. But for Baylor, this has to feel like, okay, we are, with Dave Aranda, we have arrived in the upper tier of the Big 12. Now, I don't know if that'll sustain for the years to come. I don't know what's going to happen with Dave Aranda, but as long as he is here, Baylor will be competitive with the Oklahomas, with the Iowa States, because of the way that they're going to approach offensively. They're going to shorten the game, they're going to play great defense, and they're going to run the football. And so with that formula, if they can do at least two of those things, they're going to be in a position to win every single game, or at least compete in every single game. They won't get blown out.
Let me ask you this. Okay, if Dave Aranda does stay at Baylor, and I do believe that he will. Yep. I really do. At this moment, I do believe that he will. I know that because the grass isn't always greener. And LSU's a mega program. USC's a mega program. I don't know if Dave Aranda, his personality is fit for a mega program.
Yeah.
I mean, just one of those constant, I don't think he likes that. Now he's going to be successful wherever he goes.
Yep.
But I think for his personal happiness, which to him, when you talk to him, is a very important thing about the personal happiness of him, his coaching staff, his players. Like, that's a big thing. Quality of life is a big, big thing. And I think he has that at Baylor. He has a boss that he gets along with, in Mac Rhodes. So I don't think he's leaving. So if he does stay, which I believe he's likely to do, if Dave Aranda does stay, when Lincoln Riley leaves the conference, because right now Lincoln Riley's the most, well thought of coach in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Who's the best coach in the Big 12? It's Dave Aranda.
Yeah.
And that's no offense to any of the other guys. The Mike Gundy, who I complimented earlier in the show, or Matt Campbell.
Right.
I'm telling you, Dave Aranda is, and not only that, he is, even as an assistant, he's the most accomplished coach in the Big 12 because he's the only one of those guys who's been on the field for a national championship.
Yeah, 1,000%. 1,000%. And I think Matt Campbell's obviously a guy that you talk about because of the way that he built Iowa State up from the ashes of what they were in the Big 12. But Dave Aranda, I think you said it perfectly, the most accomplished coach. And also the thing that strikes me, every single week, Baylor adapts so well. I mean, we talked about it last week. Hey, if they can stick with the receivers when plays break down, because they didn't do that against TCU. And what they do this week, there was times where Caleb Williams had 5-6 seconds to throw because Baylor's not blitzing anybody. They're all in the back end running with receivers. And so for them to be able to adapt so quickly week to week, even half to half, you don't see that across the college football landscape. And so Dave Aranda has this team very much in tune with himself. They're going to be a force, especially when Oklahoma leaves. This is going to be wide open, but you got to feel really good about yourself if you're Dave Aranda. So I don't think he will leave. I'm with you. I don't think he'll leave. What can't you accomplish at Baylor that you could accomplish at, let's say, USC or LSU? I get there's the price tag that looks good, but if you're Mac Rhodes, I think you got to do everything in your power to keep a guy like Dave Aranda around.
And the 12-team playoff is coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. I mean, they keep saying, well, it's going to be 12 or we'll go back to 4. I don't know if they can look the people in the eye and tell them they're going back to 4 because I think people are kind of fed up with the committee and they're fed up with all that stuff. I don't think they can. Right. I think saying they're going back to 4 is just to placate some people that need, their whistle wet a little bit, when it comes to everything goes on. So 12-team playoff changes everything. As far as, what's really a power, this job or that, whatever. If you've got a chance to get in, you can be one of the best programs in your conference. If you can be one of the 12 every year, look, Baylor's probably going to finish. If they win out and don't go to the Big 12 championship game, say Oklahoma, Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State, and it's an Oklahoma State rematch in the Big 12 championship game or whatever it's going to be. So say that happens. They're probably still going to finish 10th or 11th in the country. I mean, reasonably.
Yeah.
So that means
play a nice bowl game.
They would be in it if there was a 12-team playoff. So again, you can go 10-2 at Baylor a lot and get in the playoff. And then if you're in a 12-team playoff, most of the time the best team's going to win. Look, if there was a 12-team playoff this year, if there was a 12,000-team playoff, and Georgia had to play 11,999 other teams.
You and I might get a team then.
They would beat probably all of them. I mean, that they're that good.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's teams. LSU, the Aranda, the team he was the defensive coordinator of 2 years ago, 2019 LSU beats most every team ever. 2001 Miami, they were robots. They could beat anybody.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
There are teams like that. 05 Texas that going to beat most teams you play.
Sure.
But sometimes there's years where legitimately, there's 4 or 5 teams that can win the thing, provided you're healthy and hot at the right time.
Yeah.
So I think you're Randa, you stay. I mean, and don't go chasing all that other stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I can go back and forth on this for 4 hours about the 12-team playoff. Not for it, but it will happen. And so what I think that's going to do, though, is it's going to grow so many other programs. You can now market Dave Aranda, who's already a great recruiter, already has a staff that recruits really well, even without Coach McGuire, who was admittedly a loss. They're still going to be able to recruit well. And with the 12-team playoff format, be able to sell, hey, come to Baylor, come play for a playoff because we're going to be in it most years, especially if you're winning the Big 12 every other year, which maybe that's a stretch a little bit to say every other year, but they're going to be competitive in the upper echelon, especially after Oklahoma and Texas leave. And Texas isn't really challenging for upper echelon anyway, but.
So you're going to have, and look, when Texas and Oklahoma leave, everyone's going to get better. I mean, everyone's going to be able to take a step up, especially Oklahoma, who's been lording over this conference for a long time, winning it most of the time. Everything's going to get better. So, that means if Matt Campbell stays, Iowa State's got a better chance. That, Mike Gundy's going to have better chances year in and year out. Dave Aranda, all those guys. Lance Leipold maybe one day has a chance. Whoever the coach at TCU is, Joe McGuire, whatever, is going to Chris Kleiman's going to. I'm telling you, Chris Kleiman's going to compete for Big 12 titles at Kansas State.
Yeah.
They're going to do that. Look at how well they're playing right now. And so I mean, there's a lot happening in the Big 12, and this segment's going on. So we're going to just continue this in the next segment.
Great.
We're going to continue with kind of we're doing kind of a holistic look.
I love it.
This weekend, all this. We'll do that in the next segment as well, because this has gone on a little while. We've kind of got off on a tangent. Tangents are good, though. Tangents are good.
I never understood them in math class, but I know that
tangents are good.
Yep.
Tangents are good. I learned that from the movie Big Fish.
Love it. Okay, I haven't seen Big Fish.
You ever seen Big Fish?
I need to watch it, it sounds like.
Armstrong, Big Fish, just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down.
I had a Big Fish once.
No? Okay.
Died.
Good movie. Good movie. Tim Burton movie. You should watch it. Big Fish.
Okay.
Billy Crudup and Ewan McGregor.
Done.
All right. It's a good movie.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You'll cry a little bit in it.
Huh.
You'll cry.
Cry when my Big Fish died, too.
Yeah. You don't want to. Armstrong doesn't want to cry in a movie. It's fine. I get it. He's too much of a man to cry in a movie. Of course, maybe he's never seen E.T. and doesn't have a soul. I get it. Whatever. This is the Big 1-2 brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack. We'll continue our discussion on the Big 12 and everything that's changing in a moment. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th at Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza, great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by. Welcome back into the Big 1-2, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Look, if you're in town for a game, if you're a Texas Tech fan in town next week, if you're just living Waco and you haven't been, try Shorty's out for lunch. 2 slices of drink for $5.95. If you're in time for the game, hit it up post-game. It's an 11 o'clock kick for the Texas Tech game.
Okay, there you go.
So, you'll have plenty of time to have a nice late lunch.
What do you got to
or
lose?
Early dinner at Shorty's Pizza Shack. Boone's Farm special on Saturday.
Done.
Plus, big news coming in the next segment about Shorty's Pizza Shack.
About Shorty's?
About Shorty's in this show.
Okay.
Some of the things. One's probably like a little bitty news, like it's nice, and the other's like big news.
Like Sikkim sauce kind of news.
Big news, yeah. It's like Sikkim sauce kind of news.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
like big news kickoff.
Yeah, it's big. Like it'd be our maybe kind of like that. Yeah, it's gonna be that.
Good.
So, JD, continue our conversation because we got to get to some of the games in the Big 12 that happened and what's kind of coming up. Baylor and Kansas State this week is going to be a really interesting one. But going back into last week and how the scope of the Big 12 is changing, one of those things that happened, like we have to talk about Kansas and Texas.
Yeah.
We have to talk about it. We're talking about it in the Chalk Talk segment, but this is just bad for Texas right now. And that you've lost 5 games in a row. You're listless. A lot of people have given up on the season, and it's put Steve Sarkisian behind the 8 ball going into next year. I don't think he's on the hot seat, but I think his goodwill is gone from the fans because they'll be bitter about that game for the rest of his tenure.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, and the fact that Steve Sarkisian will now, regardless of what he does at Texas, I mean, they could win I guess they won't win the Big 12 probably next year, but let's say they go to the SEC and they win SEC titles, they will still mention for Steve Sarkisian, well, he still lost to Kansas that was first year. And that'll be either, depending on how that team ages is how that loss will age, but I don't think we understood how bad it really was at Texas until this past weekend. Like, you don't lose to Kansas, regardless of who you are in the Big 12. And Lance Leipold's going to, I think, get them to a point where they're back to neutral, but for them to beat Texas at home just speaks volumes to, I think, the kind of guys you got in their locker room. And it's It's unbelievable how bad it is right now.
Yeah. You're going to see in the Chalk Talk, like, some of the effort plays that Texas is not making, and you see why Bo Davis was yelling on a bus. Like, you get it.
Oh, he should feel so validated.
Yeah, he absolutely. You know what I didn't see was there are a lot of people who were clearly – there are a lot of sports writers and sports media people who have never played sports.
Sure.
I think it's the minority of our profession, but there's enough that never played sports. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones who quite often write about, like, that coach was yelling. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, look. Now, not every coach yells. Dave Aranda's not a yeller. Tom Landry wasn't a yeller. Tony Dungy's not a yeller.
Yeah.
But yelling is not the, like, perfect thing. But even if you have a head coach who's not a yeller, he's got yellers on his staff.
Yeah.
He's got people who yell for him.
If you don't, you probably have issues in itself.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the point of having a staff is you have a bunch of different diverse people with different attitudes towards things that all meld toward a common goal. I don't think Steve Sarkisian's a yeller per se.
Yeah.
But Bo Davis is, and Bo Davis is his enforcer. And you see why that happens. And that was for everybody's own good. If you got your feelings hurt by that, then that's a you thing. Yes. That's not a Bo Davis thing. That's a you thing, that you can't hear real things in a loud voice. Now, you can't play that card all the time.
Right.
You know, I've told people all the time, like, listen, if you're going to yell, like, save it for when it matters.
Yeah.
Because if you do it all the time, then people are just going to be like, all right. But you can see why Bo Davis was yelling.
And if you listen back to that, and if you haven't yet, I would recommend your kids are not in the building while you're in the room, while you're playing that out loud. But if you listen to what he said, nothing he was saying was degrading or demeaning to any of the players. Everything that he said came from a point of passion, of him caring about that team and about him caring about the attitude of that team. And what he said was basically, y'all are selfish. If you're for yourself, get in the portal. If you want to laugh and joke after we lose a game 30-7 to Iowa State, get in the portal. You have no place here. This is the program. We're going to establish a winning culture. And I said this in a hard count we recorded on CFP with JD. They have recruited so much to the image of a high social media profile, of branding, of coming to Austin and getting that blue check mark on Twitter. Like, that's the kind of guys that they have catered to get into their program. Now they have to, I think they have to rethink their whole approach when it comes to social media, to recruiting, because they're getting guys that are excited about getting a blue check and being a big-time Texas football player and coming with the image of a Texas football player, as opposed to wanting to win football games for the University of Texas. Two very different things. So I hope they get the cleansing that they deserve. I think college football is better when Texas is better, but all that's to say their work is cut out for them at Texas.
Yeah, I've changed my tune a lot when you think about, like, you know, like, teams you don't like wanting to be bad. Like, you probably need them to all be good, you know.
Sure, yeah.
But I think people do enjoy, and like I tell you, I'm one of them, when Texas kind of flails a little bit.
Yeah.
Which they've been flailing a lot because they have a fan base that is like, oh, look at us. Well, you know what? Like, you got to embrace the reality of who you really are right now. And I always think that they had, like, an inflated vision of what their history really was. They were a good team for a long time. They've only been a great team a few times. And great teams win titles. They've won very few of those, really, in reality, compared to the investment they're making for title is not, it's all out of whack. So, but yeah, I think that I agree with you. Texas is better. College football is kind of better.
Yeah, it helps. Just the blue bloods, right? I mean, it's not, they don't have to all be good, but if you have some of these blue bloods, Miami, I would say, is in that category. Florida State's in that category. Michigan, Ohio State. The sport is a little more romantic, I would say. When
100,000 seat stadiums are happy because their teams are winning, that's good. Mm-hmm. Like, it's good for the big stadiums to be packed. It's good for it's good for everything when the big stadiums are packed. I completely agree. I'm also a person who believes that, you know, college football elitism has put us in this ridiculous position where we, like, look down on teams for no apparent reason other than to keep them out. And I'm all for conference expansion and the playoff expansion because the playoff committee's explanation for things doesn't make sense. And it's like,
fair.
They said, look, we don't want this team in it. We don't feel they're worthy because we don't like them. Mm-hmm. Like, that's essentially what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to stop. And that, like, I'm not for, like, I think 12 teams to me was a little too much, but I was for 8, but they couldn't come to an agreement on an 8-team playoff. So I'm for expanding it because I think 4 4 fundamentally, like even if you're trying to be elitist, if there's 5 elite groups, 4 lets you exclude one of the elite ones.
Yeah,
so you're not even doing elitism right.
Sure, that's fair.
So it's just one of those things that, so I'm for it, but I agree with you. It's better when the big teams are better. It's better.
Now, if Cincinnati makes the playoff this year, and I don't want to get into college football playoff conversation because I know we differ on that and we can be here all night. But if Cincinnati does make the playoff, future Big 12 team, Big 1-2, does that change your opinion at all on the elitism approach?
I would think that if Cincinnati makes the playoff, everyone else has put the committee in a position where they have to.
Yeah.
Like if Cincinnati makes it, the committee is in a position where they're painted in an absolute corner.
True.
And won't be able to be like, well, we don't think that their wins are good enough. Beat Notre Dame badly.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it's not easy to schedule. Like I think that's one of the things that people. It won't change my opinion because I think that the committee's,
it's expanding either way.
Yeah, it's expanding either way.
I vote 6 personally.
Yeah,
I'm in for 6. 6 is cool with me.
Yeah,
5 automatics and at large.
Yeah, I'd be in for. Here's the other thing. I'm for the elimination of the committee and just give me a 12-team playoff based on the BCS numbers. People weren't mad about the computer. They were mad that you only picked 2 teams at the computer.
Yeah,
What's
your cap? Like if you're to say, okay, if we get to 16, too much, or 24, too much, or even 12, too
16 makes a little bit of sense, but I think 12 is my cap, honestly. Like I'm fine with 12.
Okay.
I'm fine with 12. I think after that, you kind of take away a little more of the juice from the regular season.
Fair.
All right, quick to wrap up, kind of like looking ahead to this week. Baylor and Kansas State, a huge one in Manhattan. Baylor's not been good on the road. I'm curious to see how that one goes. I'm very curious to see how Oklahoma hosts Iowa State this week. If they let Baylor might beat them twice. Iowa State, look, coming off of a gut-wrenching loss that you lose on a 62-yard field goal to Texas Tech and a situation where you got to look inward and go, how does this keep happening when they're full of super seniors?
Yeah.
That's the thing you got to ask if you're Matt Campbell at Iowa State. If you cannot contend for the conference when you have more seniors and more experience and the best players that Iowa State has ever had collectively.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about one-off greats like Seneca Wallace or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm talking about the best group of talent Iowa State has ever had. If you cannot win that way, when can you? Like, when is it Iowa State's time? If you can't win with a 4-year starter at quarterback, and if you can't win with Breece Hall at running back, and Charlie Kohler, a tight end who's 11 and a half feet tall and runs real fast and catches everything you throw at him, and a defense that is normally pretty good, when can you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but like that's got to be discouraging. You got to feel like, what is that thing that's keeping you back?
And to the point, it's like, well, when will you have the stars align like this again, right? Because Brock Purdy was a guy that they took away from a lot of other good programs. Brock Purdy, like a 4-star quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. Breece Hall, borderline one of the best college football running backs we've seen in the Big 12. I mean, there's a lot of pieces in place now. And also, all these guys came back. A lot of these guys could have gone and made NFL money next year, and they had, I think it was something stupid like 20 or 21 guys that came back of the starting 22.
Seniors,
I mean, they had so many. And so
a bunch of super seniors, yeah.
I just don't know when you'll be able to have the personnel right now. I think they'll probably have years where they're good and they'll be competitive and they'll be scrappy. As long as Matt Campbell's there, they'll be scrappy. But to have a Brock Purdy, I don't know when you'll be able to recruit a guy like that again to Iowa State. I'm not saying it won't happen ever again, but I don't know if that's something that you can necessarily count on in the next 3 years.
His brother's in the transfer portal from Florida State, Chubba Purdy. So maybe Chubba can recapture some of that. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how Caleb Williams. This is the first time in Caleb Williams' career he's been disappointed.
Yeah.
How do you bounce back as a young player from that? He's all world and is going to be all world. Last week didn't change my opinion about Caleb Williams in the future. It just kind of reiterated Caleb was a true freshman. Baylor finally made him look for 4 quarters like a true freshman. Kansas made him look like a true freshman for 2 quarters. Baylor did it for 4.
Yep.
Oklahoma State can probably do it for 4. But I'm there. That Iowa State-Oklahoma game is going to be very interesting. And Baylor, big Iowa State fans in that one. Because, look, if Oklahoma, loses to Iowa State and then goes to Bedlam and loses, and Baylor wins out, that takes tiebreaker out of the scenario completely.
Yeah. Or even more so, rooting for Oklahoma State the rest of the way. And if Oklahoma State wins in Bedlam, to hold that tiebreaker over Oklahoma, I mean, things could be looking okay. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to shake out in a really interesting way. But to your point about Caleb Williams, growing pains. And it's just his body language was the most interesting thing to me. That was the first time we had seen him, at least on television, look like he was really just upset and uncomfortable. And I mean, we forget, like you said, he is 19 years old. He's never played a defense like Baylor. I think the highest ranked defense they had played before Baylor was like 19, was like 80 or something. He had never seen a scheme like that or personnel like that. So he'll be fine. He'll be the face of the sport, I think, for however long he chooses to stay in college. Admittedly, won't be probably much longer than 2 more years, but he'll be fine. But yeah, he is human. He is still growing and maturing as a football player.
Yeah. But and the other game I'm really curious about, I mentioned it at the beginning, Baylor at Kansas State. Look, they've not been good on the road, JD. They are 2-2 on the road, and one of those is in Lawrence, Kansas, and the other one was in San Marcos, Texas. In the game that was the first game of the year, they didn't play well in that game.
No.
Really, I mean, they controlled it the whole time, but Texas State kind of hung around, and that's a team that you should have beaten, like you beat Kansas when you went on the road and beat them 59-7. That's how you should have beat Texas State. Kansas State at home, 7-3. You know, you're 8-2. They're 1 game worse than you. They're also, here's the thing about Kansas State. They're on a 4-game win streak right now because they were 0-3 in the conference and then have rattled off 4. Like they're rolling along right now.
And mature leadership in Skylar Thompson. And Manhattan, Kansas is a lot tougher place to play in San Marcos, Texas. And so they're going to have their work cut out for them. And we said it even in September. Kansas State, they're not going to win the thing, and that's held true. They're not going to win the entire conference. I don't know if it's even mathematically possible for them at this point.
There's a tiebreaker scenario.
Okay.
But it's like everything, like
so if
it's
just all
chaos.
heck break, which I mean, this season could happen. I mean, if there was going to be a year, it'd be this one. But we said it before in September. They are going to spoil somebody's party. And this coming Saturday in Manhattan, with Baylor coming to town, some Big 12 aspirations, we'll see what happens. But this would be the exact game that Kansas State would win. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, they're going to be tough. Chris Kleiman's going to play tough. That game's going to be, it's going to be just a, bare knuckle brawl. I think in Manhattan, that's 2 tough physical teams that like to get in the dirt. And I'd be a little bit worried if I were Baylor. You got Texas Tech at home to end the season, a game that they should win by a lot. I know Joey McGuire will slide them some inside info. I don't think that Tech has the horses on the road to contend with Baylor, but Kansas State this week, that one. I mean, you get a big win over Oklahoma, a season-defining win. Mm-hmm. Only defining if you beat Kansas State, and only defining if you beat Texas Tech, because if not, then it was good, and you can go look back on that and go, here's what we did well, but it means very little if you turn around and lose the next week.
And we'll see how much Baylor gave up of themselves to beat a good Oklahoma team. I mean, you have to imagine they put every single fiber of their being into that win at home. And now to have to pack it up, go on the road and play a team like Kansas State that truthfully matches up pretty well with Baylor in terms of what they want to do schematically. Baylor wants to run the football. Kansas State wants to stop the run. Kansas State wants to run the football at Baylor. Baylor at times has looked kind of shaky against the run. Not all the time, but there's been a couple games where, Iowa State, Breece Hall tore them up pretty good. So we'll see. I keep saying that. We'll see about this game, but Baylor, we're going to learn a lot about them, about how mature they are, how far along this Dave Aranda project is. Already ahead of schedule, but if they can go on the road and be mature after this, should be really, really good news for the Bears. Hoping for some Oklahoma State wins.
Yes, it should. Big news coming up in the next segment in Chalk Talk about Shorty's Pizza Shack, our fantastic sponsor, and JD breaks down what all went wrong on the field with Texas and Kansas on Saturday night in Kansas' 57-56 win in Chalk Talk. That's coming up after this. This is the big one, too, on 365 Sports. Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry, BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Welcome back into the big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Since you're watching it right now, might as well like and subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know why you haven't. But if you have, that's fine. Paul Catalina, JD Backel, it's time for Chalk Talk. Of course, we're brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack. JD, big news. I've been saving it for this segment so that I've teased it the whole time.
Yeah.
But next week in studio, we'll have Shorty's Pizza Shack here so people can get a look at the food. And confirmed for the week of the Big 12 Championship, we'll do on the show from Shorty's Pizza Shack.
True story.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay,
Yes.
I'm finding this out live on the air right now. Okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm juiced up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So big stuff coming, and I promise it'll be Sikkim sauce wings. We will survey the crew here for the pizza toppings.
I love
because we
it.
want to make sure, we get a fair showing of what Shorty's has to offer.
Yes. Will you be partaking in Boone's Farm prior to the show?
I don't know.
Will
I'll
that
have,
be-
I'll have them maybe bring some Boone's Farm. We'll just put it right here.
Okay.
So as we've talked about the whole time, I'm in the lounge this week. I got tired of being so official.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I think it fits.
Yeah,
I think
good
it fits
deal.
the tempo.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So now I get to relax and sit back and watch you break down what's wrong with Texas on the field. There's so many things that have to deal with off the field there and what's going on with their administration and how they have to react to things. But on the field, this is a team that has completely fallen apart in a 5-game losing streak and lost to Kansas. And not to knock Kansas, but you should not lose to Kansas. You should not give up 57 points to Kansas. You should not be down by 21 points to Kansas. And you should especially not do all of those things at your own place.
Yeah. We were talking before the show, should I include Pole Assassin? Do we put the Bo Davis video on here? Realize both those are bad ideas, so we're going to settle for how they do protecting the quarterback. Right here, Texas is trying to block 4 people, okay? So you have 5 people right here. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 tackles, 2 guards, and a center, right? Simple arithmetic. They're bringing 4. Bringing him, we're bringing him, we're bringing him. No tricky blitzes. Nobody's coming from the second level out here. They're all back in coverage. Nothing crazy. Kansas is trying to get pressure, but they're not trying to blitz or bring the house down. We don't do a good job on the edge right here, and he eats our lunch. So right here, we're slowing our kick slide. He has too much speed off the edge. Why this is important, because this guy right here is our blind side. What does that mean? It means he has no clue where this guy is at when he takes his step to drop back into pass. Watch this right here. We're here, right here, he's lost. And again, look at, we're only bringing 4, so we're double teaming here, we're manned up here, we're manned up here. We are trusting you as an offensive line coach to block your defensive end. Now, Casey Thompson probably could step up in the pocket a little bit quicker, but this is a lose right here. My man gets around the edge, ball's up in the air. Also notice, no sense of urgency to recover the football. We're all kind of just walking around. It's Kansas, it's all right, we'll take a play off, no big deal. Same deal here. The only difference here is we got what's called a green dog blitz from this linebacker. What does that mean? It means he is responsible for Bijan Robinson. So if Bijan Robinson adds into pass block, he's going to blitz. If he goes out into a pass route, we're running with him. So what happens, he gives a little look, he's going to, right now he's like, okay, sweet, I'm coming. He gives a look, he's pass blocking, fine, I'm coming. Ends up getting out, that's fine, we're running with him. That's all diverged to what the real point is here. He gets beat again. Different guy now, different tackle, coming off the edge. Right-handed quarterback, so he has no idea. Right here, we lose. You can't get beat to the edge like this. And again, they're not bringing 5 or 6 guys. They kind of brought their linebacker here, but again, he drops off. You can't get sacked when you only bring 4 people. That's just bad for business. And Texas is a program that's bringing in 4 stars, 5 stars every single year. So it's not a personnel issue. It's not like you're not recruiting these guys, you're not developing them, you're not putting them in a position to be successful. That's why we say every single year, the culture is bad at Texas. There needs to be a cleansing. I think there will be under Steve Sarkisian. He seems fairly okay with that. But both these clips just showing they had so much trouble protecting the quarterback against Kansas, Paul. Kansas.
Said in his press conference there could be 33 different players on the team next year. And so that's a lot when you talk about 85 scholarships. That's more than a third of the roster that could be gone in a way. And, yeah, they're not developing talent. And I don't think this is necessarily an indictment of Tom Herman or Charlie Strong necessarily, but the thing they have not done at Texas since the middle of Mac Brown's tenure is develop talent, and they're not better at Texas than they were in high school. They're pretty much the same. And that's not everybody, but that's the whole of the roster, and you see that there. And it's not good in the second quarter. You're already changing left tackles.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that you have to look at with all of these clips. It could be summed up in one word: culture. Like, that's an effort thing. I know that the guy's fast, and he's a defensive end. He looks like he beats you a couple reps there, but it's an effort thing to say, okay, I'm committing to not letting my man beat me around the edge when they're only bringing 4 people. It's a culture thing, and that's shown itself multiple times. Another thing about culture right now for Texas, getting out physical by Kansas. Credit to Lance Leipold, not trying to take anything away from them. But if you look at these dudes in high school and these dudes in high school, these are 2 and 3 stars. These are 4 and 5 stars, okay? So watch what happens. We have an inside zone play to the left. They're all going to over pursue. He gets caught inside. He does a great job sealing him off here. He is way inside. He's caught inside. Scores and touch football. So watch right here. Right now we lose this play right here because of where his helmet is at. All right? So look, nobody's accounting for the cutback. We lose. He's here. He's here. He's here. He's here. He's here. We're not even looking at anybody here. Big bunch of real estate. Big gaping hole of real estate. Simple cutback. He even trips, makes that cutback into the end zone. That's effort and that's physicality. On the line, they were all getting pushed back. Look at how many guys are on the ground here. He's going down. He's going down. He's going down. We have a collision up here. We have 2 guys getting blocked by 1 guy. Bad for business, scoring a touch football. This is where it gets really bad. Right here, Texas bringing a little cop blitz, meaning you're bringing the corner off the near side. That's fine. Everybody's good in pass coverage here. We don't get home. That's okay. Fine. Quarterback touchdown runs. That's football. That happens. Rally up and make a tackle. He's a true freshman quarterback. I'm talking about redshirt, my man, Jalen Daniels, but we'll see what happens there. Your starting linebacker comes up to make a tackle, and watch what happens. Spin cycle gets left, and then he goes and drags 2 of your Texas defenders into the end zone. Watch that again. Drop back, that's fine. It's fine that we don't get home, but the fact that he drags everybody into the end zone with him, it's not good, especially for a true freshman quarterback. Just bad for business, a bad look all around. Steve Sarkisian is going to hear about this a lot this offseason.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And one of the changes he might have to make is change at DC. I don't know if he's going to do that. Yep. Seem to think that that's not going to happen. But I think, if you just look at what Dave Aranda did here, wasn't working, had nothing to really, it just wasn't, whatever wasn't clicking, sent those guys to their next job, which is unfortunate for them. But it's worked out well here. And your second year at a place is when you usually make, figure out the decisions. I asked Dave Aranda at Big 12 Media Days, do you know what to do now or do you know more what not to do? And he says probably a little bit of both. Like, I know what I'm never going to do again as a head coach after your first year. Now, this is not Steve Sarkisian's first year as a head coach, but it kind of is because it's Texas. It's different than Washington. It's different than his stint at USC where he was not in a healthy place personally in his life. So I think those are things that he might do because – you've got to do something, and you've got to react fast because the way that this season ended, Texas has the money to pay everybody's buyout and go on and keep stacking up buyouts. So now that's not a good thing for Texas. They shouldn't do that, but they're not afraid to.
That's what's frustrating for so many of the fans in Austin is they have all of the resources in the world. Like, on paper, there is no reason why Texas shouldn't be a top 10 team every year. Also, the AP puts them pretty close to the top 10 every year, no matter what they did the year before. Another video for another time. But the culture is something that you have to take account for if you're Steve Sarkisian. And what great coaches do, I've found at least, is they're definitive. If something's not working, like you said, Dave Aranda, they make changes quick. So something to keep an eye on in the offseason. But one thing they're making a change on is the culture, and this shows itself probably in the most ugly sense in this clip right here. It's a screenplay. Watch DeMarvion Overshown on this play. So in a screenplay, It's just the epitome of a pursuit drill, essentially. So pursuit drill is drill all defensive players. Hey, you're running from whistle to whistle. Coaches are pointing you different directions. Essentially conditioning. But what it simulates is a screen pass play. So it's a screen, so he's going to slip out the back. That's fine. We got some men out here blocking for him downfield. Watch DeMarvion Overshown right here. Just watch number 0. He shows what we call a loaf on film. A loaf is where you're essentially just not giving good effort. You have a chance to make a play, and you just straight up say, I don't care. It's too much work to go and try and chase down Devin Neal, so I'm not going to. And guys like DeMarvion Overshown, I don't know him personally. I don't know his character. But plays like this are the epitome, the embodiment of what is wrong at the University of Texas at Austin right now. So watch what happens right here. My man gets out. That's fine. He's running. If DeMarvion Overshown sprints full speed, he can cut him off right here. DeMarvion Overshown's a converted safety. He's got some wheels. Man's an athlete. Doesn't matter. We're running. Watch. Just loafing. Just touchdown. Taking our sweet time. Not finishing the play. And it just looked all game long like Kansas had more grit. They wanted to win the game more. And plays like that they put on film for Texas are going to be what drives players out of this program.
Yeah, absolutely. And DeMarvion Overshown's one of their better players. And you can't have that kind of effort from one of your better players because it trickles down the roster. And I think you're seeing that now at Texas. And that's what led to the final play here where a guy who's never played, I'm going to say this again, this dude has never played an off snap. They can make a movie about this one play and his parents driving all over the country to watch this thing. His parents drive all over the country to watch all of his games in their minivan. It has 250,000 miles on it. And he's never played, and his one play is the biggest one in Kansas football in a long time. So, yeah, look, if you're Texas, and not to knock the kid who made the play,
right,
you don't let the kid make the play. It's not like those kind of heartwarming Rudy stories don't happen at DKR. That's not what happens. Like, you have to say that. Congratulations on your effort, but not in my house.
And the video of his parents, the video from the crowd of his parents when he scored this 2-point conversion to win the game, they still didn't realize it was him until like a good 15 to 30 seconds after he had scored. They go, is that him? And they just lose their minds because they're just as surprised as everybody else in the country. They didn't even know their son was on the field. Watch what happens. Motion in, and I'll just add this before we get into the clip. The reason why he's on the field is because Kansas has this 2-point conversion play they practiced all week. It's not a play they're going to run on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 3. It's a play they have reserved specifically for the 2-point conversion situation. So that's why he's in the game. They said for some reason, 47, when it comes to 2-point time, you're in the game, you might get the football. What really happens here, what messes it up, is our safety right here, Brendan Schooler, he comes down too hard on this post route. So watch, he collisions. Why, he should be getting over here. He should be getting back over. Instead, he gets caught up on a man over here on this corner route, post route, doesn't get over. Also, my man right here can't tell if he's blitzing because he thinks he's coming out here, and so he realizes he has no responsibility. Would imagine he has some sort of zone back here that he's abandoning. Either way, Schooler's wrong, doesn't get off his man. Now, to all the UT fans, this is a hold. Okay, so that's fair. This right here, can't do that. You can't hold my man with one hand. I'm not trying to rain in your parade, Kansas fans. You still win this game. I think you maybe win this game anyway, even if they don't call this, but whatever. We'll ride with it. Gets out, true freshman quarterback, kid who's never played an offensive snap before. Welcome to history. Chaos and DKR. Texas, we got problems, y'all. I feel like a broken record saying that because every single year it's, wow, the culture's bad at Texas. And now it's a new staff, it's a new head coach. Needs to be a cleansing. Guys like Bo Davis will get Texas where they need to be. We'll see if they can recruit accordingly.
Yeah, they have to recruit accordingly. They have to get in that transfer portal. And look, they might not have the quarterback for next year. I've been saying it all year. Their quarterback of the future may not be in the roster right now.
Yeah.
It may not be Hudson Card. It may not be Casey Thompson. That's something they have to maybe look at. Maybe it's Malik Murphy, their big 5-star recruit.
Yeah. SoCal guy.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Texas in the future. That's going to do it for us. Thank you to everybody who watched. Please like and subscribe when you get a chance. If not, you'll get a flat tire.
Whoa.
No, we're not going to slash your tires. You're going to get a random flat tire.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Every single week, it just keeps ramping up.
I'm not saying I'm slashing tires.
Kardashians, presidents, flat tires.
I've got things, but like you'll get that annoying flat tire, and when you take it in, the nail's going to be in the sidewall. So you got to buy a new tire.
Wow.
See, that's the thing that always happens. That's your luck. So
Ball's in your court.
Don't have the nail in your sidewall. Just saying. That's pretty annoying stuff. It happened to me 4 times in one car.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Did you not like and subscribe?
I did. YouTube wasn't really a thing when that happened, but I wasn't liking and subscribing to other things like maybe magazines.
Mm-hmm. Chicken and the egg sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. To you and your tires. Just saying. Not a threat. It's not a promise. It's somewhere in between in the veiled internet nonsense that we do every day. Thanks to Shorty's Pizza Shack. You'll get to see it live in studio next week. Shorty's Pizza Shack, and we'll be live from Shorty's for the week of the Big 12 Championship game.
Let's do it.
That's going to do it for us. This is the big one, too, on 365 Sports.